top 5 scariest abandoned places on Earth. Poveglia is a small island in northern Italy that has a strange history of death and insanity. In the Middle Ages, Poveglia was used as an isolated place to quarantine victims of the bubonic plague. It is estimated that over 100,000 people died a slow, horrible death on the island. Their bodies were piled into mass grave pits and burned. It has even been speculated that the very sick, but not quite dead, were sometimes shoveled into the pits as well, where they burned alive alongside the other bodies. The locations of the graves are unmarked and unknown, so there are likely bones buried all across the island. As if Poveglia's history weren't already creepy enough, in 1922 a poorly constructed insane asylum was built on Poveglia Island. The mentally ill of Venice were abandoned at the asylum and left to die. Legend has it that in the 1930s, one of the asylum doctors went insane himself and began performing strange experiments on the asylum patients. The doctor later climbed to the top of the asylum's bell tower and jumped to his death. In the last decade, construction crews were called in to rebuild the decaying island hospital, but the construction project was suddenly abandoned without cause. Stories and rumors have circulated that the construction crews were scared away from the island by strange accidents during construction and frightening ghostly encounters. Today, the island remains abandoned. The Italian government prohibits anyone from visiting Poveglia Island. 1962, the citizens of Centralia, Pennsylvania had a problem. It seems that the town garbage dump was full to the point of overflowing. The town council met and decided on a solution. Even though it was technically illegal under state law, they would burn the contents of the town dump in order to clear it out. Unfortunately, the town dump was located on top of an old abandoned coal mine. The garbage fire spread down into the mine, and with the coal acting as fuel, the fire began to burn out of control underneath the city of Centralia. Multiple attempts were made to put out the raging underground fire, but eventually it was considered a lost cause, and the town gave up. They just decided to continue living life as usual on top of a massive underground coal fire. This went on for nearly 20 years, with the fire still raging uncontrolled. Then, in 1981, a 12-year-old boy was playing in his backyard with his cousin. Suddenly, a 4-foot-wide, 150-feet-deep sinkhole opened beneath his feet and almost swallowed him. His cousin grabbed his hand and pulled him from the hole, saving his life.
I seen smoke, and I thought I didn't want her, my grandmother, to go over near it because she's elderly, and I was worried about her, so I went over to see if it was the mine fire, and when I did, I just fell right through.
Emissions from the sinkhole were found to contain toxic levels of carbon monoxide. This incident brought national attention to the Centralia underground fire. Congress allocated over $42 million to relocate the residents of Centralia, but some people who had lived in the town their entire life refused to leave, despite the fact that toxic fumes and smoke were spewing from the ground, and even the highway through the town had become cracked and warped from the underground heat. The state declared eminent domain over the city of Centralia and evicted its few remaining residents. The fire under the city of Centralia has been burning over 50 years and still burns to this day. Centralia is now deserted, but with 3 cemeteries in the small town, it is often said that the city is home to more dead people than living ones. There have been multiple ghost stories where tourists claim to see the apparitions of coal miners walking through the smoke from the many sinkholes and disappearing. There have even been reports of ghostly voices that can be heard telling visitors to, quote, leave this place. Centralia, Pennsylvania was one of the inspirations for the Silent Hill video games and movie. Experts believe that the Centralia fire will continue to burn for over 250 years. The SANZHI UFO houses were a complex of oddly shaped houses constructed in New Taipei City, Taiwan in the late 1970s. The construction project was said to be cursed from the start. You see, the developer chose to build the homes on what had once been the burial site for hundreds of Dutch soldiers. But then, to make matters even worse, as far as curses go, The construction company chose to split a sacred Chinese dragon sculpture in order to widen the road into the housing development. After that, everything just seems to have gone downhill. During the construction of the homes, there were multiple fatal on-site accidents and even several suicides. By this time, the local population of New Taipei City widely regarded the entire area and the homes themselves as cursed by dark forces and spirits of the dead. So there wasn't really a lot of demand to purchase the homes. The entire project was abandoned and the SANZHI UFO houses were left empty. Then in 2010, the houses were torn down completely, with plans to build a new seaside resort in its place. On April 26, 1986, Chernobyl reactor number 4 went into full nuclear meltdown during a failed routine safety test. 31 workers died directly from the meltdown and the resulting radiation sickness. It is also estimated that the meltdown might have caused over 5,000 cases of cancer across Europe, and this number continues to grow to this day. Most affected by the Chernobyl nuclear meltdown were the citizens of the nearby town of Pripyat, Ukraine. Even though workers and Russian officials at the nuclear power plant knew immediately about the meltdown, the citizens of Pripyat were given absolutely no warning for 24 hours. Residents began to report severe headaches and cases of uncontrolled fits of coughing and vomiting blood. Finally, 24 hours later, the citizens of Pripyat were evacuated. They were told that the evacuation was not that serious and would only last 3 days, so they should only bring the bare essentials, leaving behind everything else. Turns out, the evacuation was quite a bit more severe than the citizens were led to believe. The planned 3-day evacuation of Pripyat, Ukraine, has now continued for over 30 years. The city has been left untouched and decaying. It is radioactively toxic. Current estimates state that the city will not be habitable again for another 180 to 320 years. Abandoned homes, hospitals, and schools still stand, with their contents left inside. Even an old abandoned amusement park still stands inside Pripyat. The ride's now overgrown with weeds and vegetation. The Ilha de Camada Grande, also known as Snake Island, is just off the coast of Brazil. It is known as one of the world's most dangerous islands. You see, the island is inhabited almost entirely by a species of large venomous snakes. These snakes, called the golden lancehead pit viper, are found only on the island, and are some of the most deadly snakes known to exist. The golden lancehead's venom is said to be 3 to 5 times stronger than that of any mainland snake, and is so toxic that it can actually melt human skin. The island is absolutely covered with snakes, in a higher concentration than anywhere else in the world. Official estimates state that one golden lancehead pit viper can be found for every square meter of the island. It is said that the last remaining human residents on Snake Island were the lighthouse keeper, his wife, and their 3 children. One night, a window in the lighthouse was left open, and some of the lancehead pit vipers crawled inside. The lighthouse keeper and his family tried to flee the lighthouse and make it to his boat, but they were all bit multiple times as they tried to escape. Days later, the lighthouse keeper's boat was found still tied offshore. Inside the boat, the lighthouse keeper and his entire family were found dead. No one was willing to take the lighthouse keeper's place on Snake Island, and the abandoned lighthouse still sits empty to this day.